All right. I think we can start. Uh, the first topic in here looks like it's from Blaine. Something about the rook with NFS. Want to talk about that?
Yes, yeah. Um, I guess I just wanted to, let me find the the meeting notes here. I think that'll help. Um, yeah, I think there's a bug linked there in Ceph upstream, but effectively, I'm pretty sure I was able to verify it as um, a regression from Pacific, where if if the Rook Orchestrator module is enabled, then uh, NFS operations will fail. Because of the work that John Mulligan did to uh, to allow the NFS CLI to work without the Rook Orchestrator module enabled, that pathway still is operational, and that is the current workaround to get the NFS CLI to work in Rook. But for any users who want to use the orchestrator module, then their NFS commands will fail.
Okay. So the issue is now we need to work in sort of both situations, I guess, with it on and with it off. And right now it just works off in Quincy and on in Pacific.
Um, correct. I think in Pacific in the version I tested, which was like uh, a version like shortly before I think they tagged 16.2.8. It was working both with it enabled and with it disabled. In Quincy, it only works with it disabled. Um, I I don't particularly have uh, I guess a requirement either way on whether the orchestrator module needs to validate the actual Rook uh, Kubernetes cluster resources. I'm totally fine if the only code path that exists, under the hood is the one where the orchestrator is not enabled. But I think, I think that decision is up to you all. It's just if a user has enabled the orchestrator module, the commands should still work. Is just kind of the bottom line for me or for the work project.
So it sounds like, based on what you just said, one possible option would just to be to remove some of the logic from the module and simply raise the proper exception, which is basically the same as not having the module enabled. Alternatively, we could
Um,
try and fix it, um, but I don't know how many people are available to look deeply into that code.
yeah, it also occurred to me that because it's still working in both cases in Pacific, I wondered if there might be some sort of PR that got backported to Pacific and missed Quincy. I don't know if
Hmm.
some work looking at backports would have cleared that up.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's
Yeah.
definitely possible, actually.
My question is, what were you testing the same version of Rook with these two versions of Ceph? I just want to make sure that change wasn't on the
yes.
Rook side. Okay, great.
Um, so we were pretty slow backporting some of the Quincy stuff, I think around this time, because I think it was sort of close to the release, and we were trying not to just backport a lot of things, whereas Pacific was a bit farther away. We still were. So it's definitely possible something didn't quite get into the um, 17.2.0 that is in 16.2.8. Trying to check, because we had pretty much all of our Quincy backports we've done in one big batch. Trying to look there if there's anything manager NFS. Maybe we're just missing. Maybe just be missing the backports there in general. We'll just have to do that. So I might have to go look through and see what's gotten into there. That's definitely a possibility, especially if it's working in 16.2.8. You'd think that we're probably just missing something. But we'll look.
Yeah, I think one of John's manager NFSPR might not have been backported to Quincy, but I mean, we backported everything to Pacific, so that might be it.
Okay. Yeah, so just about that it works in 16.2.8 makes me think that's probably the most likely candidate.
Okay.
Go through and verify that.
Yeah, that's all I really had on that topic. So.
Okay. Yeah, we'll go through and we'll try to figure out if there's something missing. Or it gets backported. I think 17.2.1 is actually going to get released sort of soon because there was a couple of bugs in 17.2.0 that make them want to release a new one. I don't know exactly when, but I think it would probably be like, I guess, honestly, for 17.2.1.
Okay.
So
Yeah, it's also not such a critical issue that, if it misses 17.2.1 also, that's okay.
yeah, I sort of want to get it so it's just sort of almost out of the way. Like I don't want to have to keep trying to remind myself like, oh, we need to make sure we backport this
Yeah.
manager NFS thing. So I'll try to give it a look later today. Maybe verify with John which things maybe could have been related to this.
Yeah, that's fine. I don't think we missed much on NFS, but we should definitely double check. The other thing we need to double check is what could have been in the Rook module specifically. So we need to check both places.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't think too much has happened on Manager Rook. I have to check with I guess. I think he's the one who's been looking at that.
That's probably true. But the exception, yeah, my only point is the exception originated in the Rook module rather than in the NFS module. So that's why that, and of course, I think my code is perfect.
Yeah, well, I can say I think John pointed out to me like the place in the code where the exception occurs is is in the Rook module, and it is related to some changes that I feel like there's a weird chicken and egg problem here. There were changes in the NFS to use the default like .nfs
Yep.
pool instead of taking pool as a configuration from Rook. And so Rook removed the configuration from its own CRs, but then there appears to still be this part of code that's looking at the Rook CRs for some sort of sanity check. And I haven't like dug into the code, how that block of code differs between Pacific and Quincy, but it seems likely that that code block was potentially removed for Pacific, or that it was changed to be okay with that like field being missing from the resource,
Right.
from the Rook resource.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's take a look there, I guess. See maybe if this block just doesn't exist in Pacific or something. Maybe it's another backport that was missed.
Yeah, and
Or
yeah,
a
and
feature
also
that was
like
added. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, if you have any questions for the Rook side of things, you can always reach out. I'm super happy to help try to clarify.
Okay, thank you. Right. It seems like we kind of know what we need to do with this. We just have to go look through, make sure we're not missing any manager NFS backports, and check if there's any differences in the Rook module. Is there anything else anyone wants to say on this topic? Anything we're missing? No. All right. Move on then. I see there's a feature request, I guess, for the NFS stuff we talked about last week. Yeah. Okay, I see. I think this is a copy paste of the stuff that Sage had in his mail post a long time ago. Is that right, Romana? Is this,
Yeah,
I assume you put this here.
yeah, Adam. I went ahead and created this feature request so that keep track of it. Um, and whenever the, the FARM team has time to work on it, the Fadium team has time to work on it, they can look into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like we discussed last week, we want Cephadium to come up with a solution, uh, a non-HA proxy solution to um, provide stable virtual IPs to the Ganesha daemons. So we need that for the OpenStack use case.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't had a chance to look into it yet. There's just been some other things that have been going on. Do you guys have like a timeline on sort of when you need this by?
Um, he, I think I'm not sure exactly, but I can figure that out. But there is a timeline for the upstream OpenStack release. Um, so that's I don't know the release OpenStack release cycle well. I work on Ceph, so I can get you the right number, release number, and the approximate release date. So
Okay. At least help us sort of prioritize a little bit
yeah,
so
for
we
sure.
know
Yeah,
when it needs to be in.
yeah. I'll reach out to the OpenStack team and figure it out.
Okay, thank you. Like I said, I haven't had a chance to look at it yet, so I'm not sure. I don't have too much to say about it right now.
Yeah,
Um,
I was also wondering if I mean if Rook would face a similar issue because they would be using, I suppose, the Ingress controller to Kubernetes' own Ingress controller to provide a stable virtual IP to Ganesha. Is that right, Blaine?
Yes, similar. We use a Kubernetes service to provide a stable IP to each NFS Ganesha server right now. We do definitely have some like future looking desires to see if um, a more dynamic HA can be set up in Kubernetes, but there are a lot of open questions still.
Yeah, and in the Rook use case, would you be um, looking at a similar issue where you expect the backend Ganesha server to see the client IP? Is that a requirement for Rook?
I really don't know. I don't think we've talked about that case specifically. If that is something we should be considering, I'm definitely interested in kind of hearing a little bit more about that and why that might be something that we need to plan for.
Yeah, okay. Just briefly want to go through this so that uh, the Rook team is aware of this. Uh, if the backend server that is the NFS server is expected to enforce restrictions to its exports based on client IP, um, it cannot do that. It cannot do that if there's a HA proxy in front of it because um, the backend server just sees HA proxy's IP and not the client IP. So I mean that's the basic issue. And
Right.
there are other ways to get around it, like setting up HA proxy in a transparent mode, which is not feasible in the OpenStack environment. And the other approaches have Ganesha server, the backend server itself, support what they call a proxy protocol that also carries the information of the client IP. So that's something that we're looking at to talking to the Ganesha team, but I don't know. That seems it's something they need to do in their their own protocol called libndirpc. So we are looking into that too. But if you have such a requirement in the rook use case where the client IPs are restricted to certain exports, sorry, the exports are restricted to certain client IPs, and then rook could hit a similar issue. Is what I wanted to say.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, thanks for the information. I will definitely also pass this on.
Thanks, Adam. That's all I had.
Okay, good. We'll have to, I guess, just continue or make sure to just look into that at some point and figure out what we're going to do there. Does anyone have anything else they want to say on this HNFS topic? No. In that case, that was the last topic we had in the Etherpad. Does anyone have any other things they wanted to bring up here? No. All right, in that case, we can end, I guess, early. And yeah, I guess I'll see you all next week. Bye.
All right. See you next week.
Thank you.